Okay, for this exercise, you're going to be doing something, just two things. You're going to be close tooling an image of a human figure and an image of object, so any object. So for this exercise, you're going to practice using the selection tools that you've learned how to use in class and in class, and maybe if you did the simple selection tutorial, you're going to be practicing using those tools from those two places, and to do these close tooling. So you're going to be cutting out the background and putting a shape in behind. So for this exercise, you're welcome to use the two images that are used in the exercise, or you can actually use images that relate to the subject of your hidden career. So they could be something that you could use in your term project when you're done. So I'm going to be grading you on how accurately you learned how to use the tools. And what you're going to do at the end is you're going to upload only optimized PDFs. You're going to upload all 4 images as optimized PDFs, and you're going to add a couple of sentences describing what you learned or what you found confusing or frustrating. So let's get started. Going to go ahead and open Photoshop. And what I did is I downloaded these images from Unsplash, and using the convention we've talked about in class, I named it with all the information that I need to make the final attribution. This is very important because it can be difficult to go back and get that later. So I'm going to start with a chair, and I'm just going to right click on it and open it with Photoshop. So again, this background layer here is a flattened image, but what we're going to use is we're going to use this tool here called the Quick Selection tool. And what this allows us to do is it's using Photoshop's AI to identify what the subject of the image is. So what I can do is I can just click on it, and you can see that Photoshop does a really good job of selecting what the image is. Makes a few mistakes, so it missed this little hole in the chair in the back, and it also made some mistakes on the wheel, so it got confused what is part of the wheel and what is part of the background. Easiest way to make adjustments to these selections, because this is already very good, it gets us very close, is to choose this option here, which is called Select and Mask. So what this does is, and it may not look exactly the same for you, depends what the settings were the last time you used it, but you have quite a bit of control over what this selection looks like. You can actually make some global changes to it. It's especially useful when it comes to selecting the edge. But one thing that is good to pay attention to right away is the view mode, so what the mask is looking like. So here we have some options. You can look at it on black. Not in this case, not super useful for understanding what's happening to the black wheels. You can look at it on white. What I tend to like is this overlay. It's a pretty standard. It goes back to when we did stripping with film. And what you can do with this overlay is you can control the opacity. So that can allow you to see the shape behind and make the appropriate adjustments. Usually somewhere around 50%. It's pretty good. And then what you can do is just make some modifications to the areas where there was a mistake. So in this case, this wheel can be pretty hard to fix, but we can get pretty close, and then we can make other edits later when we have other tools available. So here you'll see that we have these three tools here that are particularly useful. And we're just going to start with the brush tool. And you can add or take away from the mask. So here you can see that we are adding to the mask. So this is taking away from the part that's blocking the image. And you can switch over here to the minus to take some away. A little bit hard to get used to what is plus and what's negative, but because it's kind of working the opposite of what you expect. But what can be helpful here is if instead of going up here to grab the plus and the minus, you just hold down your Option key. And the change to the tool is very small, so you'll have to look really carefully to see. But when I'm holding my Option key down, that little icon in the center is changing from a plus to a minus with my Option key. So this makes switching back and forth very fast. So here I'm going to want to get rid of this here because I want to include this part of the wheel, and as well this part here of the wheel that got erased. Just going to zoom in, and I'm not going to get it totally perfect. I'm going to let you spend some time on it. I'm not going to make this recording extra long. But one other trick that can make making these edits much faster. So I talked about the Option key. So switching back and forth from plus and negative, and this is a common theme you'll see with a lot of tools in Photoshop, is the plus and the minus. So we already saw how that works with the magnifying glass. It also works with a lot of the tools. So if I right click, so if I have one of these brush tools and a right click, I get this dialog box right here. So I can go up here and change the size of my brush, because here you can see if I use this brush, it's going to be too big. I can go up here and change the size of the brush. So I can use the slider here to change the size and try and it's not in the right place. But what can work better is just to right click, and this gives me the same dialog right here, which is really close to the area that I'm editing. And if I highlight the number, then I can hold my brush and see I'm seeing the actual brush shape, and then I can use the down arrow on my keyboard to reduce the size of the brush. And it's not showing me the actual preview. Oh, there we go. It just took a minute to catch up. Okay. My computer is getting a little bit old. So, okay, so that's getting pretty close, but I might want to actually get a little bit smaller so I can get right into the corner. And I can just click right here with Option key pressed, and then if I hold my Shift key down, it will draw a line across. So again, I'll just go down here, holding my Option key down, and then maybe trace line of the wheel. You'll find if you have access, or you want it, or you like doing this kind of thing, and you want to invest a little bit of money, you can get one of the little Wacom tablets, and working with a stylus can actually be really nice with this kind of work. It gives you kind of control that's hard to get with a trackpad or a mouse. So, and like again, you're trying to get as close as is reasonable, and then you can go back and edit later once you're other tools available, which I'll show you. And so just erase a little bit of this here. And remember, you can always edit this mask later. Once you've converted it into a mask, you can actually go and edit it some more, and we'll do that. We'll go back and we'll edit this some more once we're out of this selected mask mode. One thing that could happen too is these edges can be kind of sharp. What this tool allows you to do, which is the Refine Edge tool, is Photoshop will go and reevaluate this edge. It'll take a closer look at it. And what it did is it actually like softened it quite a bit, and sometimes it can be a little bit fussy, but it's a pretty amazing tool. Can go in and make these changes, sort of re-evaluate an area. And I'm thinking that it's too much processing to do it on the first go with the big image, but once you have it close, then going back and doing that works pretty good. I'm just gonna do this one last part here, and then I'm going to show you what you do. So here we missed quite a bit of this wheel, and I'll show you another trick for doing that later. But let's just get this part here first. This. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to apply this as a mask. So I'm going to go here to Output, and I'm going to choose Layer Mask. Make sure you choose Layer Mask. That's the easiest way to get to where we're trying to go, and you go OK. And here you can see right away it close tooled all the background out, and it created a mask. It also floated this background layer, so it's no longer a flat image. It's now floating, so we can see the transparency behind. Now what I want to do is I want to actually turn off this, get basically the same thing. I'm just going to save this first. So File, Save As. So please make sure you save your image. And I'm going to call this 2. Okay. And I'm going to turn this mask off. So I just right click on it, on the image, and disable layer mask. And then I'm going to go here to my channel, and I'm going to show the mask so I can see what I'm editing. And I'm going to zoom in to this wheel and show you one last thing you can do with this image, which is one last thing you can do with this mask, which is we can actually use one of our marquee tools to edit it. And the advantage here is that this wheel is actually a circle, and so it's much easier to get this with the marquee tool. So I'm holding my shift key down to get a circle, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, and then I'm just going to right click on it and go transform selection. So what this does is it transforms, remember, it's transforming the selection, not the pixels. And so I can move this up, and I can enlarge it. And remember, Photoshop works in a lot of modes. It'll constrain by default. So you have to, when you are, if you don't want to constrain it, you hold your shift key down. This is kind of annoying. You can actually switch it in your preferences if you want to. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to enlarge this a little bit more. It gives you a lot of control over. So it gives you this kind of geometric control over your selection. Okay, I'm going to leave it at there, and I'm going to go and what I can do is now I can just fill that with white. So I can go edit because I'm on the layer mask, and I go fill with white. Okay. And that gave me a pretty good selection for the wheel. You can see here there's still quite a bit of, because we're seeing the top of the wheel too, it needs a little bit more work, so maybe another circle. I'm not going to do that for now. I'm just going to show you how to get to the end of the image, and you can spend more time refining this selection. And again, I'm going to be grading you on how accurately you do this. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to turn this off, go to my layers. I'm going to click on the mask to turn it back on, and I am going to add a circle behind here. Actually, I think I'm going to put a square on there. So in order to do that, I'm going to add another layer and drag it behind, and I'm going to call it shape. going to save this again. Take my marquee tool, my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm just going to draw a square behind the chair. And here's a little trick. I'm going to take my going to take the eyedropper tool. So it's hotkey I, and I'm going to select the chair color. And I'm going to select the complementary color for the chair. So I'm going to sample this color to foreground. I'm just going to click on it to bring it up. And then I'm going to go to my hue, and I'm going to add 180 degrees to the hue. And that gives me the complementary color of the chair. And then I'm going to fill that area of the shape layer with the blue. Fill, foreground color, okay. Maybe a little bit too much contrast, easy to fix. I can just change the opacity to 50%. Last thing that you're required to do, and then I'll give you an optional exercise. Take your type tool. Here I'm going to go to my file. I'm going to copy the name, so Command C. And then I'm just going to click here with my type tool and paste. So you can see it created a type layer. What I want to do is I want to make sure this is readable. So I'm going to go here to the size, and I'm going to change it to 72. It's going to make it readable. Remember, I always use IBM Plex, regular. So this set the type with the foreground color. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this. Going to free transform, so Command T. Similar command on Illustrator. Command T. And so Command T. And here you can see if I go along the edges here, I can scale it. So please don't scale your type without constraining the proportions. But if I move over outside of the handles, outside the corner handles, my cursor changes to a rotation, and I can just rotate this around. And I'm holding my Shift key down to constrain it, and Enter to apply. So Command T, hold my Shift key down to constrain it, and here you can see it tells me the angles that it's doing it at. So that's 90 degrees, and I can hit Enter, or I can hit this check mark here to apply the transformation. So I'm going to move this down here. You can put that wherever you like. I just like to have it on the side so it interferes less with the image. So I'm going to go and save this, and the next part is optional. So for this part, you can go and all you have to do is go File, save a copy, and again, similar to in Illustrator, save it as a Photoshop PDF. So we're going to end up not saving the layers, but let's just go ahead and go Save. And if we deselect Photoshop editing capabilities, it will get rid of the layers. And I don't know if we have access to our, oh, we do too. So GD, if you save the GD 101 optimized PDF preset in Illustrator, it'll be accessible here as well. So I'm just going to do that. And compression, there you go, it gave me the right compression. So image quality, that's not what I want. Probably want at least medium. High usually works, so you want to have a good image quality. Anything below maximum it's going to give you a decent image quality. We could go, yeah, that should be good. And here we have it. So what I really want you to do is to make sure that it turned out okay. So go to your Finder. After you're done exporting it, and take a look at the file before you upload it. So I'm just using the space bar to get the quick look on it, and that gives me a quick look to see what it looks like. So just make sure that all the right layers are included. Now for the optional part. What you'll notice here at the bottom, if I turn off this layer mask, or disable layer mask, is there's this natural shadow. And in order to create a shadow that looks natural like that is actually a lot of work in order to recreate it. But you can actually take the image and use it for your shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do that. What you're going to do is you're going to go to Channels and create a new channel. Go to Layers and, okay, go to Channel. You don't want to invert this, so make it invert. So make it white. So you want no pixels in there at all. And go back to my layers. Go to the image. So make sure I'm selecting the image layer, the image part of the layer, not the mask. And you know that you're doing that because there's these white crop marks around it. And then I'm going to take my elliptical marquee tool. You can use either marquee tool, but the elliptical one kind of gets us closer to where we want to be. And then, you know, Option key to create it from the center and expand it right across like this. So any object that has a shadow underneath, the shadow is going to look much more natural than anything you can create artificially. And I'm just going to move this over a little bit. And then all you do is you copy the image. Go, and without deselecting, go to your new channel that you created and paste it. And I'm going to deselect, so I'm just going to click anywhere to deselect. And then I'm going to go here to my adjustments and choose curves. And now what you want to do is you want to make this part white. Anything that's behind the chair is not going to show up, so you don't have to worry about it. But you want to make this part white so that it fades out naturally. So the way to do that is to take this eyedropper, and if you hover over it, it'll tell you sample to set that to the white point. So this will shift all the pixels so that anything that is gray will go white. And you'll see what it does here in the histogram here. You see that it just pulled it down so that anything, so it's getting rid of all this area here, so this becomes white. And you might actually want to pull it over a little bit more just to make sure that you're getting the white part. A bit of a curve can be helpful too. And that's pretty good. I'm going to go OK, and then I'm going to get rid of anything that might give me a hard edge. So anything around here, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my brush tool, and I'm going to take a normal brush, and I'm going to reduce the size here. I just want it big enough to give me a soft edge. And again, having the brush size as your cursor is really helpful because it's much easier to see what you're about to do. I'm going to make sure this is white, so I'm going to click on the reset my swatches, and then I'm just going to draw over top of here, and that's too hard. I'm going to go and get rid of all the hardness on it. And then I'm going to just make this nice and soft, like this. And that's probably enough there, and enough here. And again, you don't have to worry about anything that's behind the chair. So all I want to do is just soften this bottom part here without erasing the main part of the shadow. So I'm going to make this quite a bit smaller here. for this part. This might feel a little bit complex, but every time that you do one of these, it gets a little bit easier. And there we actually have what could look like a pretty good shadow. I'm going to go back here to layers. I'm going to apply this. So I'm going to reapply the mask. I'm going to make this I'm going to pull this up a little bit so I can see, and I'm going to add a new layer underneath, and I'm going to call it shadow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up there to select, and I'm going to load selection. And I should have named it, but it's the only channel that I made, so it's alpha 1. Make it a new selection, and I'm actually going to invert it. Go OK, and that's giving me my selection of the shadow. And it's going to, you know what, the marching ants are going to look a little bit odd. Not quite what you're expecting, but all you have to do is fill it with black. So go edit, fill, and fill it with black. And go OK. And you can see that this gives you a shadow that is not only, and I'm going to add a new layer underneath here so we can see this a little bit better before we save the final image. And I'm just going to fill it with white. You can see it's a little bit better. And what you can see is it created a natural looking shadow, but also a shadow that interacts with other elements on the page, right? So it interacts as you would expect with a transparent image. So again, this part with the shadow was optional, but I hope you find it interesting. And yeah, so I'll see you on the next one.